So let's talk about the assignment number 3. So this assignment is going to give us a chance to practice working with React.js, right? And in particular, we're going to be using it for implementing what are called single page applications. So single page applications are applications that literally use a single page, and in there we inject content dynamically to implement certain behaviors such as navigating between different screens. Even though we have the same functionality that your normal whenever you're moving between one screen or another. We don't implement it using hyperlinks where you literally dump and leave the old screen and then replace it and move on to the next screen, right? That's how we implemented in previous assignment with navigating from login to registration, then from profile, and then between course list and course editor, right? We literally have hyperlinks that tell the browser, hey, drop the entire HTML document that you have and instead replace it with this other HTML document. We're going to abandon that architecture, right? Instead, we're going to be using a much more modern technique that loads a single page, right, the index page, and then never leaves that index page, right? It stays in there and instead uses AJAX. It goes out to the server, fetches information, right, and then re-updates the content, which we did a little bit of that last week using jQuery, right? We loaded basically almost an empty table, right? And then we had to go back to the server to fetch content and then dynamically render the content on the page. Make sense? So we already can extrapolate a little bit that idea that we can generate all this content dynamic. We just need data, okay? So along with data, we also are going to start talking about in single page applications as not entire HTML pages, but instead snippets, small snippets of HTML that can be, combined together, right, to build larger and larger, more complex web pages. Make sense? So that's where we're going. So that's where React.js shines, right? So we're going to be implementing. You'll need to install Node.js, and if you install Node.js, you'll be able to execute this command npx create React app and then a project. This is going to be an entirely brand new project. Okay, we're not going to abandon the Java project just yet. We're not going to use it for a couple of weeks, right? We're going to come back to it a little later to implement our RESTful service, right? But for now, we're going to abandon it for a couple of weeks. Instead, we're going to focus on React.js and Redux for the next 2 weeks. And then we're going to have these folks talk to one another, right? These two projects talk to one another. For now, we're gonna focus on this new React.js project, and you create it by saying npx create React app and then the project. You can then go into that directory and start the React project. So we'll do that in a minute, but this is what we're gonna build. We're gonna go back to our implementation of the course list, right? Which you implemented. I think it was the first assignment, right? You implemented the course list, the course editor, and you navigated between the two, and they were both hard-coded static. Yes. We're going to make the course list. We're going to make that dynamic now, right? It's going to go fetch courses from a server. It's going to render those courses, right? We're going to be able to remove them, edit them. Same thing we did with a list of users, right? That we had all the 5 CRUD operations: create, read, update, delete, right? We're going to do the same thing, but with courses. But instead of using jQuery, right, and HTML, and we're instead going to be using React.js. Okay, right? So the list is going to look something like this. You can reuse the HTML that you already have for the first assignment. You can reuse all of that, and it should behave as follows, right? In the smallest, in a phone, it just you have a single list, right, in 2 columns. We have the titles and the buttons on the right-hand side. If you click on the row, it highlights the row, and it shows some buttons, right? Otherwise, it doesn't show the buttons, only when it's selected. Instead, if you click on the hyperlink on the actual title, it navigates to the editor, right? The current editor that you have. If you click on the trash, it just removes it from the list. If you click on the pencil, it allows you to edit the title right in place, right? And when you say OK, it actually updates it, right? And then goes back to being selected, okay? If you click on the new course and you click on the red add button, it adds a new course at the bottom. Very much like the CRUD operations, but instead of users, we're doing it with courses. Okay. If you have more size, more space, it adds additional columns, right? And when it's in completely in landscape mode, you have this last modified. This last modified, it'll be real, meaning that when you actually modify the title, right, the last modified will be the actual date in which you modified it. Make sense? Right? And all this is going to go out to the server, right? Very much like we use for the users. So for this assignment, you have to create a course service, right? That's going to be almost identical to the one you have for the users, right? The only difference is that instead of users everywhere, it'll say course, 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 course. Yes? Right? Same NUID, same URL, same identical everything, right? So you just need to change the names. Right? Instead of saying /users, it'll be /courses in the URL. Okay? All right. Also notice here that we have a toggle, right? That allows you to toggle between two views of this same component, right? Of this same list of courses. If you click on the grid version of this, if you click on grid over here, it shows the same data, but represented in a grid. Okay. So the top level editor here, the input field and course manager, that's the same, identical to the previous page. That's identical. And then down below, instead of rendering as a table, it renders in grids, in a grid. Okay. The grid should behave as follows. And when it's in extra large, when you have complete landscape, right, it can show 6 courses in columns, right? When it gets a little smaller, when it's large, it can show 4. When it's in medium size, it can show 3. When it's a little smaller, then it's 2. And finally, in a phone configuration and portrait, it should only show 1 course. All right? I'll provide a start HTML for you. Right? You're free to use it or not. Right? Or if you're gonna try it on your own, then go ahead. It's pretty easy. But notice that both the grid version of this and the table version of this both render the same identical information, right? The title. That's my daughter. The last modify, the owned by, the title, and then buttons to be able to modify and edit. Okay, so both the grid and the table should render the same information. This doesn't have to look like this, right? This is just an idea of what it might look like, but it should have the functionality. So if you click here, right, it navigates back to the table view. If you click on grid, it navigates to the grid view. So you can toggle between the two. Everybody good? Everybody good? And finally, if you click on the title, it'll navigate to the editor. It's the same editor that you had in the previous assignment that you did in the first one. Okay. The only thing you're going to do is that you're going to take that same HTML document, right, and you're going to wrap it inside of a React component, right, so that you can actually navigate there, right, without leaving the index page. Right, because we don't want to leave the index page ever. We want to stay always in the index page. So that you can navigate between the two, so that if you click on X or navigate back, right, it'll show again the course list or the course grid. Right, you can go back and forth between the two. What else? I think that's it. Okay. Yes.
So we're a single page site.
Yeah.
We're updating content in the page.
Yes.
You hit the back button.
Yeah.
And like if you were previously google.com,
yep,
and you go to index.html and do a bunch of stuff like in the page and hit back, would you go back to Google?
Yes, you would. But if you're in index and then you navigate to another screen of yours,
right,
and you said go back, you would go back to a screen of yours.
But you would have to have the back button in your website, like in your HTML.
It could be in the HTML, but the back button should also work as designed, as you would expect. And the back button should work exactly the same way as you would expect it. Okay. Yeah. All right, excellent. Let's get started.